On today's show, we're going to talk about the Cavs losing to the Raptors in Donovan Mitchell's debut, and a bunch more, including Darius Garland's injury. Thanks again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
All right, the music you heard on the way in is from our friends at Astro Radio. Check them out on Apple Music or Spotify. I'm Chris Manning. I cover the Cavs and NBA at large for places like Diamond UPROXX and SB Nation Fear the Sword. That man is Evan Dammarell. He is at Fear the Sword and right at Down Euclid. The Cavs lose their season opener, 108 to 105. Also, Donovan Mitchell's debut. Mitchell had 31 on 12 of 21 shooting. Per the Cavs ties a record for new Cav high in their debut. The other big story coming out of this game for the Cavs is that Darius Garland leaves in the second quarter after kind of an night for him, but leaves the game in the second quarter with a left eye injury. TBD on the full exact severity of that as this time. More information could come out as we record the show, before we record the Friday show, before the weekend slate of games, but we'll get into all of that and more. But Evan, let's start with just your overall big takeaway from this game. When you think about Cavs Raptors 108 to 105, Toronto win, Cavs loss, what stands out to you?
I mean, the good of it and some of the bad. I mean, it's hard to fully process this game. One, because it's the first game of the regular season. You can't take full stock of what Cleveland's body of work is going to be this year just based on how this game went. But it's tough. Darius Garland went down. I think that's like one of my biggest takeaways. Maybe this game would be a lot different if Garland kind of settled in a little bit into the offense. But it looked sloppy at times. Like the Cavs just kind of looked sloppy at times on offense. There were times when they didn't have Donovan Mitchell on the floor. Like, yes, Jared Allen kind of kept them in things by playing two-way, having high two-way impact. Like, you're going to talk about Caris LeVert a little bit throughout the show, too, just about how he was just largely ineffective on defense down the stretch. Like, there's just a lot of small mental mistakes that I think the Cavs can kind of course correct on, adjust, and move forward. It's just now you have to have a little bit of quiet concern that if this Darius Garland eye laceration is a long-term injury, like let's say he's out against Chicago, out against Washington, out against for however long it is, you're losing valuable live ball reps between him and Donovan Mitchell to kind of figure out and fine-tune this partnership they have. And I guess the positive of that is Mitchell and Mobley can kind of iron things out a lot faster now, but we'll see what happens. It was a sloppy game overall. There's probably some plays the Cavs wish they could have back, and it was still close. I think that's the most reassuring thing of all is the Cavs were able to kind of make this a one-possession game, even when it felt like it was out of reach, especially when things blew open a bit in the fourth quarter.
I think Mitchell was pretty sensational in a lot of ways. He was
phenomenal.
The ways he was able to create corner threes for Cedi Osman in particular is just he's putting pressure on the defense immediately. He's clearly providing, I think, a dimension offensively with this full look that you should feel good about if you want to feel optimistic about this Cavs team. I think Mitchell was providing just a ton for you in that sense right off the bat. I think some of the trickiness with it is just you're not, because of the Garland injury, you again don't get to see some of the full good of it. And you could also just see them having to work out some of these kinks in real time. Like Evan Mobley in this game did some really sensational things. He had a block in the first half on Scotty Barnes that was awesome. He made a three-pointer right off the bat and looked comfortable taking all three that he did. There's a lot in this game to feel really optimistic about. Towards Mobley, you also saw some passing from him where it's like a little bit off, a little bit late. Mitchell still kind of maybe finding a rhythm with certain guys. Garland, when he did play, it was not a good Darius Garland game. I mean, you could see him maybe forcing things a little bit.
He was
maybe
pressing a lot.
Yeah, dealing with some of the size of Toronto. Has a 2 of 8 night, 0 of 1 from 3, 5 turnovers versus just 3 assists for Garland. It was a very uncharacteristic game from Garland, and just little things were not exactly right. And then down the stretch, it's Toronto, hits a bunch of threes to come out in the fourth. They're having just moments where they're kind of beating the Cavs in certain aspects in terms of offensive rebounding. They got to the line a bunch more in this game, which you can feel how you want about, but just the fact that they did, and that had an impact on the end result of this game. And the pressure they provided, the pace they played it down the stretch, they outscored the Cavs by 11 in the fourth. And this was a winnable game to me, Evan, that maybe like a more realized version of the Cavs kind of maybe can win of it, but there's also tells you that it's a reminder, okay, there's some growing to do here, kind of broadly speaking. You obviously hope that Darius Garland's injury isn't going to kind of hamper with that in a significant way.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think there are positives that you can kind of sift through some of the muckiness of this game at times, and I think the Darius Garland thing is just a bit of a gray cloud over it, and JB Bickerstaff said he was bleeding quite a bit when it happened, so we'll see how he recovers, like you said, see how he's doing tomorrow, and then the Cavs don't play again until Saturday in Chicago, so they have a little bit of downtime to maybe get Garland rested and right, and the team's staying overnight in Toronto and not leaving until Thursday, I believe, and getting Chicago Friday, so it's a good way to kind of rest and recover and just maybe not push things too much, but yeah, it's just like you said, it's not the entire season in one game. That'd be really hard to like. It's going to be easy to fire off hot takes after this game. I'm absolutely sure of it. But it's one of 82 games. The Cavs, and we've preached this a lot on this show, aren't going to have things fully figured out by the start of the regular season, the end of the preseason. Yes, they have their starting small forward for now figured out, but you kind of have to just roll with the punches and keep growing and adapting and ironing out these small kinks, and we'll see how they adapt to DeMar DeRozan in Chicago on Saturday instead.
Let's just talk about Mitchell for a few minutes, because this was his official Cavs debut. I think the most impressive thing about it, Evan, was just how much pressure he puts on and how decisive and quick he is in the half court. The Cavs, I think, overall as a team did try to play with a little more tempo than maybe we're used to them playing last year in an effort to kind of make things easier. But Mitchell was kind of the head of that. He gets into the half court. He's darting into the lane. He's using a very quick screen and just going. And he uses that to create openings for guys in the corner. That's how Cedi Osman, who's awesome in this game for the most part at 17 points, and was 3-6 from 3, is getting open corner 3 looks. It's how Mitchell is getting to spots and just really attacking and attacking and attacking. And for stretches in this game, when he had to sit post the Garland injury, when he wasn't on the floor, the Raptors absolutely dominated. And you get it later in this game, and like we'll get into this more in awards, but it's just like if the Cavs don't have him, this game becomes a lot uglier very fast. And even if Mitchell is not the version that we saw in this game and doesn't play at the level he did for a large chunk of this game, Toronto probably gets away with this one with a lot larger of a margin, and the Cavs ultimately lose. Again, the Cavs lose this game, they should feel, I think, disappointed that they do, but I think this is a much less competitive game if Mitchell isn't as good as he was in this one.
Yeah, absolutely right. Like if this was the Cavaliers prior to the Donovan Mitchell trade and Darius Garland went down with an injury and you're saying, okay, we need to lean on Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Larry Markkinen, Colin Sexton, maybe Ochai Agbaji, who's not even getting burned for the rebuilding Jazz right now. Like you have to lean on a lot of these guys to kind of push you through it. I don't think you have it. And having a guy who's like a proven clutch scorer and a guy who's willing to put the team on his back when he needs to, kind of much like a Greg Jennings who broke his leg in Madden, put the team on his back situation. Like the Cavs have that luxury now, especially in the event, like let's say Garland is out for the next couple games. Like they can kind of like maybe push Donovan Mitchell a little bit and just say like, okay, Don, we got to put a lot on your shoulders right now. And I guess the bonus is he's more comfortable and his teammates are more comfortable playing with him, but you also don't want to tire him out. So it's a fine line you have to walk. But I think having Donovan Mitchell, like you said, kept the Cavs in this game realistically until the very end.
Yes. All right. After the break, we're going to talk more about Donovan Mitchell because he will, at least in some of the show up for some of these plays, show up for some of the really important things that stand out in this game. So we'll give out our awards after this. But first, we're going to tell you about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. Find all of the latest league developments, game matchup news, and podcasts, including every weekend slate of games. BetOnline is also your continued source for your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. It is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including the NBA, MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. For instance, Evan Mobley is at plus 1,600 at BetOnline to win Defensive Player of the Year. The Cavs over-under, meanwhile, is set at 48 this season. They'll obviously have odds for the Cavs' upcoming games this weekend against Chicago and Washington as well, if that is more of what you're into. Remember, that's BetOnline. That's where the game starts. Check them out today. They have everything you can need when it comes to the latest odds, news, and scores. All right, back here on the Locked On Cavs podcast, I'm Chris Manning. That is Evan Dammarell. Evan, let's give out game awards. I'm going to just pick it up where we left off. I'm going Donovan Mitchell. 31 points. I think, again, he was by far the most consistent, high-level player Cleveland had in this game. They have an 11-2 run in the third where he comes back, and after the Raptors made it a real game, where this is one of the swing moments in the game. If Mitchell doesn't come back and kind of put his foot down and make his imprint felt, this game gets out of hand, and it's a lot larger of a hill to climb up if the Cavs are going to make this game close, make it competitive down the stretch. I think, again, you would have liked the win if you're Cleveland. I think you have to feel pretty good about how good Donovan Mitchell was in a lot of ways in this game.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on with it. If the Cavs didn't have that, like we said in the last segment, if the Cavs didn't have Donovan Mitchell in this game would have been a lot wider of a margin. And boy, look foolhardy on my score prediction on the chase down the other night, but either way, Donovan Mitchell by far was the best player for the Cavs. Like you and I both noted it actually at the top, and we never really mentioned it. Like Evan Mobley looked really good in the first 8 minutes. Like he was the best player on the floor, but then you saw signs of rust and maybe just like a little bit of uncomfortability with how the Cavs are functioning, especially without Darius out there. But Donovan Mitchell, wire to wire, was the best player for the Cavs, and like you said, they went on an 11-2 run in the third when he came back in, and the Raptors made it a game. Like, it's tough to say like how impactful he truly is until we have a large sample size. Yeah, like it's clear like he's going to be a meaningful player for the Cavs, and he's the clear pick. But for me, my MVP pick just is like a runner-up, more or less. And shout out to Jetty Osmer for having a good game, but it's Jared Allen in this one because when Mitchell sat in the fourth quarter, this kind of goes hand in hand with my play of the night as well. But Allen just providing a ton of rim protection and just like really defending the rim well and altering a lot of shots at the rim really also helped keep the Cavs in this game because Toronto could have blown things open, especially in the interior, because Toronto, as we noted in the preview, did feast on the offensive boards. They had, I'm looking at the numbers right now as I talk here, they had 12 offensive rebounds and they had 18 second chance points because of it. So like there's a little bit of a balance there, but I think Allen altering shots and everything just kind of made an impact there and also kept the game close for the Cavs.
Allen had a stretch in the third quarter that was a 2-minute stretch with playing both ends of the floor, blocking shots, altering shots, finishing in the lane. That was some of the most important play of this game. The Cavs needed someone to just kind of step up in that moment with, I believe, Mobley and Mitchell off the floor. LeVert wasn't cutting it. Osman, wasn't cutting it without Mitchell out there. Howell Nato, bless him, played a little bit and got brutalized at times. Like Allen had to be that guy, and he really was. He was. Jared Allen's really good, and like even if he ends up being like the fourth best, hot take. Jared Allen's pretty good, but like he is just dependable, and like some of the stuff from last year, if he's catching really nice hands on the inside, putting up quick little hook shots, being effective in those scenarios, like you feel pretty good about that. Okay, let's go to stat of the night.
Real quick, he's their like you mentioned, he may not be their highest scoring star of the four the Cavs have, but he's going to be the most consistent on a night-to-night basis on either end of the floor. That's just where I'm at.
Yeah, he's even. Okay, let's go to stat of the night. Mine's very simple. We don't need to really dive into this too much. Raptors were 23 of 32 from the line. The Cavs were 19 of 23 in a 3-point game where the Raptors just got more free throw attempts. That really matters. Mm-hmm. Again, you can feel. I at least am not going to partake in ref talk. I find that to be not particularly productive and just not where my brain goes, to be honest with you, listeners. But I look at this and just say, okay, look, the Cavs didn't benefit from that. Raptors kind of did. OG was 6 of 7. Siakam was 4 of 8, but FEV was 4 of 4. Trent Jr. was 5 of 7. Like they just had more opportunities there that matters in really, really close games, and that it is what it is. Yeah,
it is what it is. I mean, you can't really. Yeah, you can complain about the officiating all you want, but it's not going to do anything when you're complaining about it from home. Sometimes you have to roll the punches, and you can't let the factors you can't control if you're the Cavs decide the fate of this game. And those 4 misses at the end of the day for the Cavs would have been the difference. They would have won this game by 1 in theory if they had made those 4 free throws. But also, that just opens a butterfly effect. We don't really know what happens. But speaking of points and just how great Donovan Mitchell was tonight for the Cavs, he scored or assisted on 52 of Cleveland's 105 points tonight, which really does put into perspective how much they needed him out there as an offensive spark plug and how he was getting his teammates. Like Dean Wade got a good 3-point look off of Donovan Mitchell driving to the basket. So did Jetty Osman a few times. I mean, like, Mitchell is still going to have to learn how to find these spots with his teammates. I think the Cavs are really going to have to drive this home if Darius Garland's out, but it's encouraging at least. And, you know, to quote the former Seahawks great and kind of blunder for the Broncos, you know, you got to let Don cook, man. That's all I'm going to say is just let Don cook. And I think JB kind of encouraging these point guard sets. And like I asked Donovan Mitchell about this, he says, like, hey, I like playing point guard a lot. And then he was quick to say this is still Darius' team because he's the point guard. But like Donovan with the ball in his hands is super effective, and you kind of got a clear indicator of that tonight statistically, just based on the points he scored and the assists he dropped.
No, I hope his vibes are much less awkward than Russell Wilson's. If I ever see a reel or a TikTok that is
Jazz Nation,
stitching a sand,
let's ride.
Dean Wade did that, and I was like, Dean, you're really messing with the vibe here. Considering I was like, Dean, in my head, I was like, Dean, what's going on here, my guy? I don't need to see
the Chiefs.
Yeah, just be really into the Chiefs, just not Jackson Mahomes. Okay, play of the night. I'm gonna go just something that I'm gonna. Evan, you go first because mine's gonna be just like me being peak curmudgeon-y Chris for a minute, and if you have some positive vibes here, I think you should
for sure.
do that before I'm just like let's unpack something that's gonna bother me.
So shouts out to Carter Rodriguez and Justin Rowan. We all tried to warm Chris's cold black dead heart last night on the chase down, but alas, this game ruined it. My play of the night is on one end of the floor at Jared Allen blocks OG Anunoby and then gets a tough bucket in the low post about midway through the fourth quarter. Until the Cavs kind of iron out these kinks offensively, defense leading to offense is going to have to be their bread and butter, other than like a Darius Garland, Jared Allen pick and roll lob. But this is just how the Cavs have to function as a team, especially if they are missing a star scorer in Darius Garland, where they have to kind of turn some of these games into a rock fight and really like just defend their opponents really well, and then just turn it into a tough bucket on the other end and just kind of grind this out. And that's just a good indicator of it. And again, Allen kind of held down the fort a little bit when Mitchell was on the bench.
All right,
the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Well, that one was great. The Mobley block in the first quarter where he rotated back to block Barnes was
cool.
You're just like, oh, this guy, like really, this first 6 minutes of this game, I think Evan Mobley was the best player on the floor.
He was sophomore of the year for sure in that moment.
He also had like a really nice drive in this game that you're just like, okay, like Evan, like there's just these little flashes with Mobley already. You were just like, man, when he gets in a rhythm in the season, you might be up for something. My play of the night is I think something just to watch going forward defensively for the Cavs. So late in this game, Pascal Siakam was one of several Raptors to really brutalize Caris LeVert on the defensive end of the floor. They work it so he just gets to drive on Siakam, and because Siakam has this height advantage and a strength advantage over LeVert, he's able to get his shot off before Mobley or Allen at the backline can contest it. He makes the shot, scores with really no resistance. It becomes a 6-point game at this point, a 6-point deficit for Cleveland. It's a 13-2 run for the Raps. The Cavs in this spot are late in games. Like, obviously, understand the appeal of playing Caris LeVert and Garland and Mitchell. You put all your ball handling on the floor. You give yourself optionality. You could tell tonight that even just in small instances, they're having like Okoro and LeVert and other guys bring up the ball as not to have Mitchell and Garland every single time get the ball and carry the burden of bringing it up time after time after time. You could see that from game one that's going to maybe be part of the plan here. LeVert defensively is just going to have to be better than he was in this game, or like his effectiveness late in games is going to be really tough. And you can say, oh, this is one game, you're overreacting, blah, blah, blah. Siakam is the template for the kind of wings you will see in the playoffs at some point. Giannis obviously is Giannis. Jason Tatum, ever heard of him? Harden can be this physical against a guy like Caris LeVert. I do absolutely believe that, right? Like Butler can be this effective in this way and in these circumstances against a guy like LeVert. Like the East is full of these kind of dudes, and like you are going to see them in big games. You're going to see them in big moments. And like, look, we're going to talk about Okoro and LeVert in segment 3 a little bit more because LeVert gets the start. Okoro did not. Okoro plays 11 minutes, a bit like just a shade under 12 minutes. LeVert plays 34. I understand Okoro did a bunch of nothing in this game. I think just from
Okoro was bad in this game.
He did literally nothing.
He fouled 4 times and missed a 3-pointer.
Took one shot and absolutely bricked an open 3-pointer. But those 2 preseason game vibes just out the window. Why preseason games don't really matter? No, but this is like where like maybe even just from like a stout perspective and holding up a little bit, you can be like maybe Okoro needs to just play just because like LeVert's gonna get brutalized like that. Is it on a scale of 1 to 10, Evan? How much of a Chris Manning game 1 thing is this? I feel like it's like a 7. I could have talked about Dean Wade cutting, and that would have been like a 10.
Oh, that's a 6 or a 7. If this is like a really glaring issue, this could really become a Chris Manning 10 in no time. But I'm willing to give this the benefit of the doubt. Maybe we see something different. But DeMar DeRozan also had a really good night tonight against the Miami Heat. Like, he could carve Caris LeVert up and down the floor on Saturday night too. And then Brad Beal could take his time, and so could Kyle Kuzma on Sunday as well on the back-to-back. Like, this could get ugly. And I will say, at least based on this game, and this is just like my quiet concern, like the offensive stuff I think is starting to work out a little bit with LeVert not being like a high impact scorer next to Mitchell and Garland, but like trying to be that connective piece. I still think him being considered like a ball stopper just based on what he was in Brooklyn is hyperbole. Like, I just think that Caris LeVert is shipped. That ship has sailed, and you can't really like expect it to come back. But for now, I still feel reaffirmed in my beliefs that like you cannot play Garland, Mitchell, and LeVert together down the stretch because you're just going to get unless like Mobley and Allen just become absolute freaks defending the perimeter and the interior at the same time. But like that's asking a lot out of those two as well.
You'd have to really pre-switch with Mobley is what you'd have to do, and then also you'd have to like do that, and then also just being like, we're not switching. You have to be so clear in that like you're not switching with Mobley in those circumstances. Maybe you could do it. It's asking a lot. Okay, after the break, we are going to get into our final takeaways from this game with a little bit of look at Okoro, a little bit of look at Osman, maybe a little bit more on Jared Allen. We'll be back after this, but also want to thank you again for making us your first listen every day. Now make your second listen game-to-game NBA every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game-to-Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game-to-Game on Locked On NBA. That's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, last segment on Locked On Cavs. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell. Evan, would you like to talk about Cedi Osman or LeVert and Okoro first?
Let's talk about something good before we can become real cynics again.
I mean, look, brother, I was born in the darkness, you know.
Okay.
I'm just there.
Well, objectively, The Dark Knight Rises is like one of the funniest comedies ever if you watch it from that angle. But Cedi Osman wasn't bad tonight. I think we kind of noted this on the chase down, but it's just something I've just been kind of focusing on with the Cavs not asking too much of Cedi, and you saw them asking too much of him, or Cedi trying to do too much, at least in the fourth quarter when he had that costly offensive foul and turnover that kind of at least swung the pendulum permanently back into the Raptors' side of things and just kind of ended the game right there. But then Scotty Barnes had a weird turnover, so there's still life. But either way, Cedi was all right when you're just asking him to be a shooter who floats around on the perimeter, get you some rebounds, and just knows then he has to kick it to one of Donovan Mitchell, or just Donovan Mitchell at the most part of this game. So I think there's stuff that worked with Cedi, and I think now if Darius Garland is out for a bit, like there's stuff you can explore with it, but you just got to find that steady balance. And the way it works is obviously just having somebody who is much better at setting up the offense and just finding Cedi in the right spots where he's comfortable shooting the ball.
Someone had hit me on Twitter and was like, could this be similar to the Rubio partnership, where like he really benefited from Rubio playing with Rubio last year, and that was like clearly a thing statistically, film wise, whatever. We've talked about that a lot on this show. I think the Mitchell partnership is going to be different because Mitchell is a guy that's going to look to get his own, and like when he makes the read that they've cut off his lane to get his own shot, then he makes the pass to the guy that has become wide open because of him. whereas Rubio is really trying to set up his guys. But Osman's a guy that absolutely can benefit, I should say, from guys like that, guys that are going to open things up for him, make his life easier. He's a guy that I've always, like, amid all of his struggles, you could, I think, definitely argue he has not been, the way he plays has never been, like, exactly perfect with the way the Cavs have played offensively the last couple of years. He's kind of been kind of a little bit of an fit with kind of what they're doing. If Mitchell seems like a guy that he fits with really well, I mean, and look, I think for what they need and kind of what you could see them doing tonight, it absolutely makes sense to me that he got 27 minutes. Obviously, some of that is because of the Garland injury, and he starts the second half, but like you can kind of see clearly why he's going to get some minutes and why he makes sense on this team.
Yeah, he absolutely does. And I think you hit the nail on the head a lot too, where defenses will collapse on Donovan Mitchell driving to the basket, and guys like Cedi Osman, guys like Kevin Love, who I believe had 9 points in this game, like didn't really put up much, but like Kevin Love gave you some type of offensive production. Like guys like those two, especially, just looking at them, Darius Garland when he's healthy, maybe Evan Mobley, who was trigger happy to start the game a little bit from 3-point range. Like guys like that, if they're floating on the perimeter, and the defenses are collapsing on Mitchell at least has the vision and the wherewithal to know to pass to one of those guys, and they'll only benefit. And I think getting a rhythm for a guy like Cedi, who can really be all over the place sometimes, like I use like a seismograph like with my finger as an example here, it's only going to help the Cavs because they are a very anemic team in terms of 3-point shooting. Like they were below average last year in 3-point shooting, and the way to make it better is just have guys get easier looks and easier makes out there.
Yes. All right, let's move on to Okoro, because let's compare the stat line to him and LeVert. So LeVert's 34 minutes, 2 of 7 from the field, 2 of 2 from 3, 7 assists, and a turnover. Okoro, again, just under 12 minutes, 0-1 from the field. His shot that he missed, the only shot he took was a Evan Mobley created wide open corner 3 that he missed by a country mile. He committed 4 fouls. He commits a turnover. I mean, Evan, to me, it says so much that he gets, again, just under 12 minutes. In the second half, he plays 2 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, not Donovan Mitchell, excuse me. Isaac Okoro just wasn't good in this game. And I think folks who thought that preseason, like this is what we were talking about when it came to like this quote unquote starting small forward race. Like, yes, he had 2 good games against Atlanta and Orlando to finish the preseason, but as a caveat, he was playing a lot of second stringers and third stringers and a mix of starters in there as well too. So like he probably had easier looks. And I think this is going to be JB Bickerstaff's challenge with just keeping Isaac Okoro, because he's going to have to be part of this rotation. Like if he didn't have so many fouls, maybe he was defending down the stretch because he was playing super aggressively and kind of playing a little too amped up tonight too at times. But the lack of offensive rhythm is going to be tough to kind of keep Isaac Okoro in there, and they have to find some consistency. Like, yeah, you could write about how he worked with Noah in training and like finding a 45-degree angle for his shot arc and things like that. Like that's a single shooter situation where like he doesn't have anybody really defending him or anything like that. That's in an open gym. In actual live game ball rep situations, like it's a lot different, clearly. So the Cavs just kind of have to figure out the kinks with him. And again, I don't think they have the ability to afford to let him learn from his mistakes on the fly because the expectations are a little bit tighter now. And like there's guys he probably could use the shots more than Isaac could, because he can reliably ask like Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, Allen, Love, etc. to get you more reliable buckets. But we'll just say, yeah, Isaac Okoro was bad in this game. And I think maybe he and Cedi Osman both have a shorter leash, so if either of them are a little bit inconsistent, JB pulls the hook and looks elsewhere, whether it's Caris LeVert or Dean Wade or somebody else down the roster.
I think the Okoro playing 2 minutes thing is obviously just like telling you like how short his leash is going to be. But you look at the second half. This is the minute totals for guys in the second half out of 24 possible minutes. LeVert plays 19. That's a team high. Mobley plays 8. Mitchell plays basically 18. Jarrett Allen plays 17. Cedi plays 16. Dean Wade plays 13. Kevin Love plays 10. Howell Nato plays 6. So you have like a very, I think, thin rotation to some degree here. If you can feel as like a fan or an observer like how you, let's say, feel about Lamar Stevens or Mamadi Diakate, the flavor of the week, or whomever, or Robin Lopez, who doesn't play in this game, which makes sense because he's a bad fit. Like I could see him playing Saturday or Sunday, but not today. It's just like the depth of the Cavs remains just like a little if Okoro is going to be this, and it's shaky even if he's going to be better, and like this on top of it just being like, okay, this is like this is the worst possible start Okoro could have had. It's just a reminder that like the Cavs are really kind of missing some better pieces at spots like 6 through 10. And that's going to show up, I think, again and again and again this year, would be my guess.
I mean, after the preseason hype of Isaac Okoro, this was a pretty big wet fart to let out there on the court tonight. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how he bounces back against Chicago and Washington as well. I'm not willing to throw the bathwater out with the baby quite yet with him, but if the Cavs kind of still have these issues, maybe they start cashing in on some of the remaining assets they have to round out their rotation. Maybe they go look at Jay Crowder, or they go look at Terrence Ross, or maybe just anybody who can provide you some reliable perimeter scoring and just wing depth as well at some certain spots and scenarios too. Like, there's ways the Cavs can explore this, they just have to handle it delicately and just kind of figure out what works. But this is a bad Okoro game. He could obviously bounce back and look fine against Chicago, but tonight, yeah, this is a bad game and a little bit of a disappointment just considering how strong the momentum at least looked heading into the regular season based off those last 2 preseason games. But alas, it's just that's the nature of the beast sometimes. It's just this is the Isaac Okoro story up to this point.
Yes. Evan, let's get out of here. Any final Cavs opening night thoughts? Mitchell's debut, the Garland injury, Allen, Mobley, like anything else you want to hit on before we get out of here?
Those black uniforms go hard. I am happy to say I was wrong about them. I thought I wouldn't like the Cavs script, quote unquote, along the shorts, but that they're nice. I like those uniforms a lot, and I'm glad they're going to be really wearing them a lot to start the season.
My only last thing is that we didn't talk about him, I think, enough for how good he was in spurts, but Evan Mobley is going to be good.
Oh, yeah.
Evan Mobley is
He showed rust at times, but like
handle was a little loose at times, and that led to a couple turnovers and had one that got wiped away by a foul. But yeah, like there's some stuff you're just like, yep, this dude's gonna be really freaking good when it all just kind of manifests itself out.
Yeah, that's and the only benefit, I guess, to Darius Garland possibly being out is you're going to get a ton of live ball reps and opportunities between Mobley and Mitchell. And you even saw it tonight. There was a pick and roll, and Mitchell kind of lobbed it to Mobley, who then laid it up with the bunny. So there's some fun stuff there.
Mobley missed an alley-oop to Jared Allen late in the game. That was so wide open. I'm just like, it was right there, and he just like it was just a Browns quarterback-esque pass, and it was like staring him right in the face for an easy dunk. That was tough. Okay, let's end it there. Thanks again for making us your first listen every day. This episode was produced by Jake Stevens, who is not with us behind the virtual glass, but, is out there in the universe. We're going to be back tomorrow with more on this opening night loss, perhaps the latest on Darius Garland as we get more information. We'll look ahead to the weekend slate of games as well. As a reminder, we're a Monday through Friday show, so we will not. If something big happens on the weekend, we'll get something up and whatever. But we will come back and cover the weekend games on Monday. So they play Saturday in Chicago. Sunday night is the home opener against the Wizards. Those will both be covered on the Monday episode of Locked On Cavs. For a second listen today, check out Locked On NBA. The NBA season is here, and our local NBA experts and insiders have you covered on and off the court all season long. All the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's available on YouTube, Odyssey, and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Chris. That's Evan. See you tomorrow. Again, Cavs lose 108-105. Mitchell scores 31 in his debut. It's fun. Glad basketball's back. A lot more to unpack as the season gets going.